Hello, this is Cantor, CTO of Aptage. This is a demo of our minimal viable product release of the Aptage Sprint Tester. This demo is intended for those who are familiar with Agile development. Now, after logging into the tool, this simple screen comes up. Now, imagine you're in a sprint planning session and you want to determine which stories to include in the next sprint. Now, first you should enter your velocity history into the tool. Now, like many teams, your velocity history, particularly in the early days, or if you're doing innovative work or whatever, is not constant. And in fact, your experience so far has been in sprint your first sprint you got 28, the second sprint you got 37, and the next sprint you only got 24 story points done. So with that history entered, you go into your backlog and you find which stories you want to plan for. And into your backlog, you find you have story 112 is the next priority, story 115 is another priority, story 95 is the priority after that, and then story 120. And so given your history, this is your tentative sprint plan, but you want to see if it's feasible. So you go into your planning poker session. Now, for story 112, most people bid 8 story points, but a couple people bid 13. So you have the discussion, not the argument. And even after a bit of discussion, your team still thinks it's 13. Some people think it's 8, and some people think it's 13. So rather than throw away the team knowledge, that is, there's some uncertainty within the team as to whether it's 8 or 13, you enter in these 3 values. No one thought it was below 8, so 8 is your low. Most people thought it was 8, so 8 is your estimate. But some people thought it was as high as 13, and so you enter that in. Now, story 115 went the other way. Most people bid 8, but there was a few votes of 5. So in this case, 5 is your low, 8 is again your estimate, and 8 is also your high. Now for story 95, most people everyone in the team thought this one was sort of really well understood, and so everyone very quickly settled in on 5 as the bid. And then finally, for story 120, some people thought it was pretty easy. Some people weren't so much sure, so they put it 8. And a few people actually thought there were some pitfalls ahead, so they bid 13. And after a bit of discussion, all three numbers showed up in the bid. And so rather than throw away that amount of uncertainty, we keep all 3 numbers into the plan. Now let's see what is the likelihood of delivering these stories given our velocity history. So our application is running now in the cloud. All you have on your computer is this web app running on your browser app. And the actual calculation is being done on our servers. What we got back was that this sprint has about a 50%, 49% chance of being on time or early. Now, some teams may say, okay, good enough, we'll go for it, because we think we're going to do better in the next sprint. Other teams may say, well, that's just too risky. We've been missing sprints to now. My risk appetite isn't that high. So they go back into the sprint planner, sprint tester, and they say, well, look to these stories. Let's drop a story. Well, the obvious one in this case is story 120, since it is the most uncertain. And the team decides to go back, study this a little bit more, maybe break it into 2 stories, and so they eliminate it from the plan, and they calculate the risk again. So our code is running in the cloud, and it comes back with an 82% chance of being on time and early. 80% is good. It's actually a good number for a sprint tester, because it's neither too aggressive nor too conservative. If it were too conservative, then maybe you're not delivering enough capacity to your organization. If it's too aggressive, it gives you the risk of a bow wave effect. Even if you miss this plan by a little, there wouldn't be much of a bow wave effect. So you go ahead and you say, this is the plan I'm going to commit to. These 3 stories, and that's the sprint for this sprint. That's the plan for this sprint. Again, this is just a minimal viable product to have people try it out, give us feedback. The GA release will be much more capable with integrations and ability to not only plan sprints but overall releases. And in fact, we're planning to do an automatic builder based on your priorities and risk appetite. Join us at aptage.com. You can sign in, for a free beta, play with this yourself. There's also a velocity learner in there to give you a little hint of what's going on behind the scenes and how the velocities are estimated based on your history to figure out to help us generate the likelihood of success. Thank you.